In HTML, a hello world example would look something like this. Just hello John inside of a heading. So it's just so simple that anyone could just glance at it and instantly recognize what's going on. Now it gets a bit more complicated when you want to do something like change the name John whenever someone starts typing on the keyboard, for example, into an input field. So jQuery and Angular solve this problem in two very different ways. So let's do it in each one and then compare the results. First, I'll switch over to jQuery. I'll set up the input field that we're going to type into. I'll set up the script, which is just going to use the jQuery shorthand for when the DOM is ready. Now we can start looking for the DOM elements. So to be able to look for them, let's set up some IDs. ID of name for the input and an ID of greeting for the heading. So the name is going to be the one we watch and the greeting is going to be the one that we update. So for the name, let's find that first. Create a variable because we're going to use it twice later. And for the input, let's find that one as well. Now on the name, we'll set up a listener. This is just going to be key up. And we'll pass in a callback so that whenever a key comes up inside of the input field, we can update the greeting text to be hello plus the value of name plus an exclamation point. So if we run this now, you can see if I start typing John, it'll say hello John, or Peter, or Walter, or William. So it's working perfectly, and that's how you do it in jQuery. Now let's switch over to Angular and see how we achieve the exact same thing. So I'll set up our input field, and I'm actually not going to write a script tag this time. I'm just going to create a model, give it a name of name, and then bind to that name inside of the heading. And then the last thing to do is just simply bootstrap our app. So if I run this now, you can see if I start typing, it's automatically updating without really doing much at all. So you can see the main difference here is that we are creating a model, and whenever this data changes, our data binding is updating the string inside of our heading, versus the approach in jQuery, where you have to wait for this kind of main function to fire off when the document is ready, and then you have to look up the elements one way or another, whether it's by ID or any other way. Once you found the elements, you can set listeners on them and then set a callback. Sometimes they nest a few deep, and then update the data after that is all set up and done. If you compare that to Angular, which is simply declaring what's supposed to go on inside of the HTML, where you basically write some HTML and then you sprinkle in some expressions and data bindings, and then that will update the HTML itself. It's a very drastic difference. And I think the most important thing to point out is this brings you really close back to just pure and simple HTML. It's very simple. It's, again, instantly recognizable what it's doing, compared to this, which, if you don't have any experience with jQuery, you're really not quite sure what's going on. But if someone's only familiar with HTML, they actually might be able to recognize, oh, that's saying hello and name gets updated whenever the model of the input gets updated. To wrap this up, in comparing the Angular approach to the jQuery approach, I really think you can begin to appreciate the power and simplicity of Angular.